We are live, and we are talking today about Excel again. And I'm sorry that my logo is back to front, but mirror image view doesn't always work for us. I'm going to just wait a few moments and see if anyone else joins us. And in the meantime, it is a sunny Thursday in Port Elizabeth, but yet it's cold. Like my fingers were turning blue earlier to put on the heater, wearing a jersey, but yet it's sunny. Doesn't make any sense. But wherever you are connecting from today, I hope that it is pleasant weather and that you are enjoying the global warming effect that's currently happening with the lack of winter for the most part. So it's lovely to see you here today and to have you online. And just to say that last week was the first week that we actually did this hashtag Excel Live thing. So last week what we spoke about is functions and formulas. Hey Benevolence, nice to have you here. We spoke about the generic concept of functions and formulas and a few other really basic things. And I promised that this week we would be talking about VLOOKUPs and if functions. And before I jump into that, I just want to mention that there were some people that asked about what if functions. And what ifs on Excel, hey Chantal, nice to see you. What ifs on Excel, they're two different concepts where we find ifs. Okay, so the one is the if function, which is really a formula that allows us to do something, and I will tell you a little bit more about that just now. And then the what if functionality within Excel is really something we can utilize when we're doing scenario analysis. So we say, okay, so I've got this formula that I've built up. For example, let's say I'm trying to calculate a car payment. Okay, so I know how much my car is going to cost me, 200,000 for example, and I know over what period of time I have to pay it back, say 5 years, and I know what my interest rate will be, say 10%. I'm not going to do these calculations in my head. Hey Annette, nice to see you. But what the what if function can then do is I can change any of those inputs or those variables to be able to arrive at a new conclusion. So if I know that I can afford to pay 2,000 Rand a month, I can then say, okay, I know that that is the end result of my formula, but say I need to change the value of the cost of my car. What will happen using my what if functionality to be able to get to my 2,000 Rand? So it will then change the cost of the car in accordance to the payment that I'm able to afford. So that is the what if functionality, and I'm not going to go into that one in too much detail because not a lot of people use that. And I think the question was really all about using the if function. So just to talk about the functions and formulas quickly before I delve into if functions and VLOOKUPs. Last week I said that a function is set up by starting with your equal sign, and then you've got your function name like sum to calculate the sum total of something. Open your bracket, and then you select a few things within the brackets, close your bracket, press enter, and then you're done. So the ones we addressed last week, we spoke a little bit about the sum function, and I think we spoke about max and maybe even average. And all of those are built up really similarly. You'll start with equals sum or equals min or equals average, whatever the case might be. Open your brackets, and then you go select the cells that you want to calculate the total of or the average of, and then you close your brackets. Now with if functions and VLOOKUPs, those are a little bit more complicated because they have a lot more items within those brackets. So it's not just as simple as selecting your range of cells. You actually have to go tell it to do a few things. So if we start with an if function, because an if function is sometimes easier to understand than the VLOOKUP. So what the if function is trying to do is it's trying to say if there's some test that I'm performing on a cell value, what must it tell me if that test comes out right or true, and what must it tell me if it comes out wrong or false? So let's take an example. If I'm trying to determine which of the cars in my list are yellow, and I then wanted to say, if it's yellow, I must buy it, otherwise I'm not interested. Okay, let's go with that. So we'll start off with equals if, so literally the if, open your bracket. And then how it's set up within your bracket is to first give the criteria. So I'll say that specific cell that I'm looking at, for example, it might be listed in B3. In B3, I see the color of the car. Test B3, does it equal to yellow? Okay, that's my test that I'm doing. Comma, the next part is, what must it tell me if it's true? Buy that car. Great. Comma, what must it tell me if it's false? Don't buy it. Okay, not interested. And I close my bracket. And that's it. That is literally how the if function works. Okay, so it says, what is the criteria I'm testing for against a specific cell? And then what is the answer it must give me if it's true? And what is the answer that it must give me if it's false? Now, there are a few confusing parts that come in when we deal with functions. And the most obvious one in the case that I've now mentioned is really all about text. So where I've used the word yellow, or I've used the words buy or don't buy, as soon as I start typing something into my formulas, I must always make sure they are in double quotation marks. Okay, so any text must be in double quotation marks. Not 2 single quotation marks, 2 double quotation marks. Hey, Emma. So that is really important, because if we don't do that, Excel gets really confused and it's like, this is not a number, like, I don't know what to do with this information. Okay, so we must make sure it's in double quotation marks. That being said, a good rule of thumb in Excel is to make sure that you stay away as much as possible from typing information into formulas. You should preferably be linking it to a specific cell. So maybe you have written yellow somewhere in your sheet. So instead of writing yellow in your formula, you can just go link it to the cell where you've got the word yellow. Then you don't have to worry about double quotation marks. Okay. That brings on a whole another range of kettle of fish where we have to worry about putting dollar signs in place and absolute and relative values. I'm not going to talk about that today. That can be for another time. Okay, but so that is the basic principle behind using if functions. What's important to note is if functions tests for one cell at a time. You don't look at an entire range. So I can't say test all 5 of these cells to see if they are yellow and then tell me true or false. I test for one cell at a time. Okay, so that is the basics of if function. Then the other question that I said that I would address today is all about VLOOKUPs. And one of my participants during one of my sessions once called it a VLOOKUP because it makes them vloek, makes them swear. And I thought that was so appropriate because a lot of people get confused with VLOOKUPs. Now, what a VLOOKUP does is it basically allows you to look up a specific value that's currently in your sheet to somewhere else where there's more information about that cell. So the example that I would normally use is to say, fantastic, I have a product list. Okay, I've got a product list that maybe has a description and I want to know how many items have been sold, for example. But there's another list that contains all of the sales values. So on this list that I currently have, I've got all of the, hello, thank you for joining us. We're just talking about VLOOKUPs quickly. So if I have a list of all of the items that I want to determine how much has been sold, maybe I've got product codes, maybe I've got brown hairspray, yellow hairspray, purple hairspray, I don't know. Okay, I've got all of them listed underneath each other, and I want to know how many of those items have been sold. What's important is these items that have been listed here need to look exactly the same as the other sheet where we're going to go find that information. Okay, so in this other file, or in this other sheet, I've got at least the name of the product that I'm looking for and how many have been sold, or what value it has been sold for. Whatever information you're looking for, it must have at least those 2 items. Otherwise, what's the point, right? So what the VLOOKUP then does is it starts with equals VLOOKUP. The V is for vertical as opposed to HLOOKUP, which would be horizontal. Most people just use VLOOKUP. Okay, so equals VLOOKUP, open your bracket, and then the first thing that you put inside of your bracket is what cell are you looking for? I'm looking to find out how many purple hairspray cans have been sold. Okay, so I'll put in purple hairspray. I select the cell that contains purple hairspray. Then I put in a comma. And then the next part is telling me where will I be able to find all of the information I'm looking for. And in this case, it's in that other sheet that contains the different products as well as the sales. So I go and select all of the cells that contains that information, making sure that I start with where my purple hairspray is in the first column and on to the right. If I'm saying that, that should automatically mean to you that if the number of sales that have occurred is sitting to the left. Sorry, my directions are now confused with a mirror view. But if my sales is before my hairspray bottles, I'm not going to be able to get very far using my VLOOKUP. Okay, so you must make sure that the information you're looking for comes after your product. Okay, so I say this is where I'm going to look for it, and then I'm going to put in a comma again, and then I have to tell it in which column number will I be able to find the information. So if in this other file I've got my product name, so my hairspray, and then I've got the number of items sold, and then I've got the value of the items sold and the date on which it's been sold. So I've got 4 columns, and I want to know the value of the items that have been sold, not how many, but the value. So price times by quantity. So what I would then say in that case for my column number, it would be number 3. It's going to be the product quantity, and then the product value. It's always going to be then number 3. It does not matter which column letter it's sitting in. So whether it's in column H or in column C, it's still going to be column number 3 because it counts the number of columns based on where you start your range. Okay, so it's going to be 3, and then there'll be another comma, and then our last argument that we'll fill in is either a true or a false. And what that one is really trying to ask us is, should this be an approximate match? So like, just roughly the same, or should it be exactly the same? If you want it to be exactly the same, then you say false, because it is not an approximate match. And 99% of the time, we will put it in as false. Because if we put it in as true, so we want it to be an approximate match, then you might be looking for a surname that is Dupria, but there's a deploy close by, and it might read that as the same thing. Okay, so normally we would want an exact match, so you put in false, then you close your bracket, and then if you've done everything correctly, and if your purple hairspray can matches exactly to what is in the other sheet, that purple hairspray can, then you should get a result. You might end up with not applicables if what you've got in the one sheet doesn't match to the other one. And then there are a few extra things that we can go have a look at to make sure it makes sense. Okay, so VLOOKUPs can be really complicated, but they are actually really simple if you just break it down. There's certain rules we need to remember as we're building up our VLOOKUP functions. And I would want to encourage you to come attend one of our classes where we really unpack VLOOKUPs in a lot of detail, even give you some crib notes. Okay, and it's really useful to be able to just track through all of those and to implement what I've been telling you today, and put it into practice. And that only by practicing will you be able to learn what types of issues you might experience and how to actually deal with those. Okay, so those are the two concepts I wanted to chat about today, if functions and VLOOKUPs. And last week I promised that we would be having some online Excel training sessions, and we have confirmed the dates. It will be on the 17th and 18th of July. It will be taking place on Zoom, okay? And it will be 8 a.m. till 1 p.m. And I would like to invite you to come attend. It is a basic session, not intermediate. Okay, so we'll really be talking about the fundamentals of Excel, but you will be learning about 9 different functions. You'll be learning about how to do graphs, printing stuff, formatting your files properly, all sorts of things. Okay, so still great stuff that you need to know about. There will be a test of competence at the end, so if you would like to present your certificate to your employer or someone else that shows that you have done this exercise, you have done this training session, and you are actually capable of implementing what you have learned well, then you should definitely get hold of your test of competence to be able to get your certificate of competence. We have high standards though, but you'll be fine. Okay, so if you would be interested in joining that session, the price is $1,250 per person, which is much cheaper than our in-person sessions of $1,800 roughly per person. So definitely do capitalize on the opportunity. You'll get your worksheets, you'll get your workbook, and we will actually go do some of the exercises during the session together. You'll have the opportunity to ask me questions, and we really are there to be able to help you make sure that you are getting to grips with the basics of Excel. And if those things work out, if our basic online session works out, we will then start scheduling our intermediate one, which will probably be falling over 3 days, probably also half days. So if you're interested in those, please do drop us comments below, and I will ask Benevolence to just add our link to be able to go register for the Excel Basic session. And then I really look forward to seeing you there. And thank you so much for the last few people that have joined. It's nice to see you guys, and maybe I will just give a few minutes if you would like to ask any questions in the comments. You're welcome to do that. In the meantime, what I have up my sleeve for next week is, I know a lot of people struggle with this, and it's called pivot tables. And what pivot tables allows us to do is to really analyze data quickly and effectively. And I do believe that will be a valuable session to attend, especially if you are used to using Excel, but you're just wanting to up your game a little bit. So do tune in for that session next week. Same time, same place. If you do have any other questions, do pop them in the comments below, and we will make sure that we address them in some of our future sessions. This will be happening every Thursday, 1 p.m. on Instagram Live. We'll be sharing this out onto Facebook as well. It will also be going onto our YouTube channel. So if you miss any of these, please do go check it out. Go subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's a lot of other information out there as well. And tomorrow at 1 p.m. we will be going live on Facebook as well, just like spreading the love here. And I will be talking about, last week we spoke about your month in review. So I think tomorrow I will probably be talking about how you see your year going forward. And as you know, yesterday was the 1st of July, and it's the first day of the last 6 months of the year. I can't believe how fast this year has flown. So we'll just be chatting about how you can start planning for the rest of the year and make sure that some of those dreams and goals you set at the beginning of the year will still be available to you and you can still achieve them. So do check us out there. And it was really awesome. Great. Yes, Lotus, thank you so much for the feedback. We can look it up so we won't be completely blank in the live. I like that. Yes, we will definitely make sure we share that. So next week, pivot tables, and I will ask Benevolence just to share the topic there. But as I said, if you do have any other questions, we'll make sure that we'll address them over the next few weeks. July will probably be all about Excel. If there are a lot of extra questions coming through from Excel, then we will continue with this theme. But the idea would really be to share some productivity hacks with you guys, and really just up your productivity in the workplace, in your personal life, looking at some digital tools, all sorts of things. There's a lot that we can share, right? Share knowledge and share experience. So thanks again for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow on Facebook or otherwise next week. Have a lovely day further. Goodbye.